do, what it 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 do.
What it do? What it do? What it do indeed? How's everybody doing tonight? I hope the answer to that question is well. Hope everybody's well. What it do? What it do? What it who? Tonight's stream is going to be a 100% camera-free stream. My eyeballs are motherfucking shredded, you guys. I don't know what's going on. I think maybe because spring is sprung here in Louisiana. Like the pollen, the tree sperm is all in my I'm a victim of a tree bukkake. But being under the fucking studio lights for tonight's show was the fucking last straw. It was the final straw, dude. So this will be a totally camera-free stream. Not that that matters for most of you, but just so you know. You're here to gaze upon me. This is not the stream to do that in. No, tonight's stream is reserved for just chilling. Oh man, dude, my fucking eyeballs, they suck right now. It's like really, really super light sensitive, itchy, irritated, watery. At the same time, they feel dry. I mean, fuck this shit, dude. Bullshit. Gamers rise up. What is that, dude? What is that? The lamest battle call ever. Gamers rise up. That's why I never bought into this whole gamer culture shit. Not to go off on a tangent here, but if you'll indulge me. Does anybody like being a person who enjoys video games from time to time, but not really being a gamer? Because, you know, once again, no camera tonight, but my hand is up. My hand is up. I never liked that label. I never liked labeling myself as such. I never liked all the weird culture that I was expected to be a part of because I enjoyed video games. Yeesh. Yeesh. So. Yeah, I have a gaming channel, but I don't call myself a gamer. I hate anime and otaku and loot box shit. It would just like back in the day, nobody really thought of like gaming as a cultural thing. It was just like, you know, you played the games you liked. You and your friends, you know, got together, you played the games you liked when they weren't around. If you felt like playing a game, you popped in one you liked, and it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't assumed that that was a defining feature of your life. Is that you're a dude that plays video games. It was just like, yeah, I play video games once in a while, but... And all the bickering about which console is the best and shit. Like, I like to play that shit up and stuff with people, but if I'm honest with you, I never understood it. Other than from a marketing perspective, you know. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's a good point, hard work. Like, fucking... I like movies. I don't call myself a movier. I like music. I don't call myself a musico. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a special label for anything else I'm into in my life, but for some reason, because I like to play video games, I'm expected to walk around and call myself a gamer. Like, oh, thanks. Opt out. The bacon done? Let's check. Oh, no. It's still got some time yet. But you can tell it's starting to get a little more brown around the edges. You're starting to see the slow fry start to set in here, but it's got some time yet. I can't tell you exactly how much time. Red Dead Redemption's one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely on my top 10 list. If I were to sit down and actually think it out, Red Dead would probably be in the top 5, honestly. That game's just hit on all cylinders for me. Yeah, I hope Red Dead 2, I mean, it's a sequel. So, video games, sometimes the sequel transcends the original, but quite often you get something that's just not quite up to par. Yeah, I played Manhunt on the GameCube, I believe. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. The first Manhunt, it might have been on the Xbox One, to be honest with you. But the first Manhunt game, I played it when it came out. I ended up getting it from the GameStop around the corner from the house I was living in at the time. Traded in a bunch of games and got Manhunt. And I think I've talked about Manhunt here before on the stream, but, not to be super rehashy with it, but it was like one of the first games I played that really shocked me with the level of violence. It was just, it's probably been matched and exceeded since, but I remember that was the first game, and I'd played all the ones that people were wringing their hands about, Quake and Doom, with all the blood and guts and gore and shit, but I'm telling you, dude, Manhunt had a level of brutality to it and a level of casual, realistically presented violence that was just beyond anything else that I'd seen personally at the time. But like violence in video games was nothing new. I remember this game, and it's lost to history now. It was called Narc. And this was back in probably the late 80s, early 90s. I remember playing this game, and I shit you not, it was at an arcade at a Pizza Hut that was in the shitty little town I grew up in. And it was called Narc, and I believe it came out for the Nintendo as well, but I played it in the arcade, and the whole point of the game was you were a cop, right? It was a 2-player game. You were either the blue cop or the red cop. You're this kind of like near-future cop, and you dual-wielded like submachine guns. So you were a cop that had dual submachine guns, and you were kind of made up in this armor. One of them was blue, one of them was red. And the whole point of the game was you'd go through these like dilapidated Detroit-looking neighborhoods, right, with all these fucked up, boarded up shops and shit. And these junkies and drug dealers would jump out of the alleys and throw syringes at you, among other things. I mean, they would shoot at you and shit too. But like some of them, every once in a while, a junkie would just, pop out from behind a trash can and lob a handful of dirty syringes at you. And I remember that game being pretty fucking gory. Like when you killed them, they just kind of exploded in a fountain of gore. Yeah, I do believe that Narc was one of those games that was made in partnership with like some government entity that wanted to, push up an anti-drug message. You know what I mean? Did the end of Red Dead surprise you? Did you get upset? I did get upset, but just in an emotionally affected way. Not necessarily. Like, it was really, really well done. I did not see it coming. And when I saw what was going to happen, it was, it was a tense moment. I was invested. I'd spent so much time with this character. And to see him get his, his dream only to have it whatever, spoiler alert, only to have it snatched away from him. And then I loved the way that they didn't let it just end there. They gave you that satisfying last little tidbit, and the way they did that was just beautiful and brilliant. So I like I said, Red Dead is a 10 out of 10 game for me. And there's only a few games that I would put on that pedestal. But the first Red Dead Redemption, 10 out of 10 game. Gameplay-wise, interesting, fun, tons of stuff to do. Soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks in a video game in recent memory. Graphics, I mean, if you consider that sort of thing, and I do to a certain extent, beautiful, evocative, felt like I knew the surrounding area, going from one area of the giant world map to the next. Even though it wasn't all that big in terms of game world, they made it feel expansive, you know, and just chock full of shit to do. Like I said, it fired on all fucking cylinders, dude. It's one of those rare games, man. I haven't played as much of Red Dead Revolver. I played a little bit of it, and I remember liking the showdown mechanic in it, but not much else about the game. I really think that Redemption is where the game found its niche. I enjoyed every side thing about Red Dead. I think I 100%ed Red Dead Redemption, not the Undead Nightmare expansion, but I might have to correct myself if I'm wrong. I don't know how to even get into my PSN account anymore, but I'm pretty sure I either 100%ed it or came very close in terms of like achievements, and that's something that's very rare for me to even care about in a game. But I wanted to do everything in that game. I wanted to experience every little bit of content that world had, all the hunts, all the weird side missions and stuff, all the optional things about the game, every little nook and cranny of that world, all the hidden items that, you know, off the beaten trek, and you know, it was one of those games. How's it going in America land? It's going all right, man. Unfortunately, the twist for what caused all the insanity in Condemned 2 is pretty dumb. I haven't played any of the Condemned games. They look a little too high-strung for my tastes. I've seen other people streaming them, and I don't know if, you know, if you've ever seen any of the gameplay footage that I uploaded, or that other people kind of cobbled together from my time I spent streaming Alien, whatever the fuck it is. I don't really do well with tense games, and that game looks like it's wound a little tight for me, if you get my drift. I don't know that I played Just Cause 3. I think I played Just Cause 1 and 2. In fact, I know I played 1 and 2. And I really liked those. They weren't, you know, they didn't captivate me to the same level as like Red Dead did in terms of an open world exploration centric type of game. But since politically you're somewhat socialist, you should look into economist and computer scientist Paul Cockshott, his theories of cyber socialism. Okay. I mean, I can take a look into that. I may argue with your portrayal of me as somewhat socialist. I don't really find myself espousing many socialist political beliefs anymore. Well, I mean, unless it's in terms of a transition to some other kind of government. I'm supportive of socialism as a transitionary system to a resource-based economy. You know, but I'm not advocating for socialism as a permanent solution to any problem anymore. And I don't find myself, I really wouldn't advocate for socialism as a permanent fixture, period, for a replacement for our current system of crony capitalism. Yeah, Mr. Cockshot has an unfortunate surname, but sounds like some interesting reading anyway. I liked the Darksiders games. I don't know that I ever finished either one of them, but that's not really a slight towards the games. I mean, they weren't my favorites, but I enjoyed the time I spent with them. They're just amongst the pile of games that I started and never finished. Some people claim resource-based economy is socialism. Well, I mean, I can see some elements of a resource-based economy being woven into some socialistic thing, but I look at it as a stepping stone in the right direction, but not far enough. See, I'm of this mind that we really shouldn't, even if we're not really forward political thinkers, and I don't really consider myself to be. I like to be kind of at the fringes of things. I like to be the guy that says, what if? But even for like really forward political thinkers, it seems like there's this idea that we need to be confined to already existent systems of government. So you have to line up as a capitalist, or as a representative Democrat, or as a Republican, or as a Democrat, or as a Green Party member, or, as a socialist, or a libertarian, or an anarcho-capitalist, or, I know that I'm probably not an intelligent enough dude to come up with a future system of government that would be plausible enough for people to throw their weight behind. But I don't think that that means that I should settle for what we have now. There were times on this planet where nobody could conceive of the types of government that we have now, and we have them now regardless of that fact. And I think that there is something better. Something that doesn't necessarily incorporate much from any of the bullshit that we've tried already. I mean, I see failure everywhere I look in political ideology. When hardcore capitalists and Republicans and flag-waving, America-centric political thinkers say that communism and socialism have been a colossal failure in the world, they're right. They're correct. If you want to look at it in terms of, countries that have tried it versus countries that have implemented some stable system of it, yeah, there's been a lot of death and destruction and, terrible perversion of political ideals that have communism and socialism's name written all over them, and there's no amount of intellectual flip-flopping that you as a leftist can do to deny that fact. That doesn't leave you looking like you're just kind of shuffling from foot to foot. I admit it, it's a failed system. I just happen to think that democracy, or I guess more specifically crony capitalist plutocracy, is yet another example of a failed system that has exported millions of dollars of damage across the world. It has been responsible for millions upon millions of uncounted deaths worldwide. I just don't think that, because these other systems of leftist government have failed, that I should buy into the kind of more and more everyday right-wing government of free market capitalist trickle-down fantasy bullshit. And like I said, I don't pretend to be a guy that has all the answers. I'd rather be a guy that asks questions, but I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a political idea that seems to incorporate the right things, and I just don't think we've gotten there yet. I don't think anybody has conceived of it, and if they have, they haven't gotten their idea out there wide enough for me to catch it in my net. Paul, do you advocate for the nanny state type of government? How about eliminating income tax and implementing a consumption tax? I mean, if you're listening to what I'm saying, you understand that I don't advocate for any of that. Not just nanny state policies or abolishing the income tax in favor of a consumption tax. The idea of a state as it exists now, the idea of taxation as it exists now, are things that I think need to go in the rubbish bin of history. I no longer want to tinker with the broken car, guys. This car needs to go to the scrapyard and needs to be crushed down and repurposed as we can into something that works. So, no, I don't advocate for a nanny state or any kind of tax reform other than abolishing current tax policy and finding a different way of distributing wealth amongst the masses and maintaining a system of government that supports a society. Do you believe in a strong family structure? I believe that people have the right to adhere to a strong family structure, but I don't think that people that don't should be looked at as lesser or not part of, the collective. I think that people should respect other people's choices when it comes to family structure. Eric of Melnibone? No, I have not heard of that. I think being under Unity's mind control from Rick and Morty is the best societal government system. Our differences are the source of all our pain. Maybe. Yo, Paul, love tonight's DFF. Have you guys considered dedicating an episode to the John Doe and Jane Doe cold cases? Might be interesting. I don't think we've talked about that yet, but it might be an interesting idea. Here, I'm gonna turn the music down a little bit. Like the space ambient music. Makes me feel like I'm in a spaceship exploring the universe. You heard of the Iceman? Yes, you're talking about Richard Kuklinski. HBO did a series of documentaries on him called The Iceman Confessions, where he sits down and has a very frank conversation with the movie's producers about, because he's in jail, he's never going to get out. No possibility. It's the Iceman tapes, okay. I think one of them is called The Iceman Confessions. But anyway, there's a series of, I think, 3 of them that HBO produced that are really, really interesting. I mean, and he's just kind of frank and open about the things that he's done, because like I said, he has no hope of ever getting out. And he talks about how coldly and callously and efficiently he just kind of murdered people over the course of 2 or 3 decades for the mob. And then kind of in one of them, he sits down with a psychologist who tries to dig a little bit and find out how his mind processes day-to-day interactions, what he cares about that other people don't, and what other people care about that he doesn't. It's a really kind of fascinating look at a pure psychopath. So... Paul, do you think Bush is a war criminal? I think every president since I don't know. I don't want to draw the line, but certainly every president since I've been alive is probably a war criminal. Given national and international law. I don't really hang that medal around Bush's neck as an example of somebody who's apart from presidents. I think that Obama is a war criminal. I think that Donald Trump is a war criminal. Because they're all part of the same system. Like, the fact of the matter is that when Barack Obama shot missiles at foreign countries in strategic assaults and ordered drone strikes and shit, every one of those pieces of ordnance that dropped got somebody that probably donated a bunch of money to Barack Obama a little bit richer. That conflict fed the pockets of people that ensured that Obama got elected, and that ensured that they would back Obama's policy insofar as it didn't, interfere with their corporate guidelines and goals. You understand? Like, we're talking about war as a cottage industry, not even like a booming fucking mainstay industry. And those people finance the campaigns of the people that are elected to government who make the decisions when to bomb people in other countries, when to launch military operations. You don't see the dangerous, easily fucking spotted circle that's created by those two fucking halves of the coin. You don't see the way that those two things feed each other endlessly and will almost always work against the best interests of the people not only in the country of origin, but in these countries that are having this violence exported to them. You don't see the problem with that? Of course, war is a fucking racket. More so now than it ever has been. So when you ask me, do I think George W. Bush was a war criminal? Yes. Do me a favor, name a president that wasn't a war criminal. You don't see any profit in Syria? Well, you're pretty fucking stupid then. You don't see how fucking geopolitically important Syria is just based on its fucking proximity to Russia? You don't see what a strategic central point it is, not just for Russia, but in the entire Middle East in terms of like a base of operations? You don't think somebody got a fat paycheck for those smart missiles that got fired? You know what I mean? You must be real fucking stupid. Sorry if you've answered this before, but where were you on 9/11? Not a problem. I'm always happy to re-answer things for money. No, I think I have talked about it, but I woke up on the morning of September 11th with the TV at the foot of my bed on. My girlfriend, who I was living with at the time, had left it on in hopes that I would see what was going on. She had to go to work. I woke up about, I'd say, 3 minutes before the second plane hit the tower. So the first plane had already hit, and I was kind of standing there gawking at the giant hole in the side of that building and watching the live feed and listening to all of the announcers and news pundits and stuff talking about what had happened and speculating. And as I was watching the live feed, about 3 minutes after I woke up and wiped the crust out of my eyes, I was just starting to grasp what had actually happened. The second plane hit. Live. And it was, I'm not trying to sit here and wring my hands and say, like, oh my God, it was just a traumatizing experience. But I'm telling you, dude, that was one of the most sinking feelings I'd ever had in my entire life. And it's, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be within actual viewing distance of that. Because I'm just telling you, watching something as ponderous as a big smoldering hole in one of the, most iconic American structures is mind-boggling in and of itself in terms of its implications, especially for people like us that were raised, people like me who were raised really during, the end of the Cold War at this time where it was really kind of apparent that America had beaten Russia. Russia had failed. And, America was very ascendant and we felt very powerful. And then just to see this smoking hole in the side of what represented our power and domination, and then to be watching that, trying to make sense of that, and to see the very second it happens, another plane hit the second tower, and to realize how unsafe that made everybody all at once. Shoo. It was a very, very strange feeling, and that didn't stop, man. I'm telling you, it was a strange time to be an American for if I'm honest with you, a few months after that event. People that were very mild-mannered and peaceful became warmongers overnight. People who I had always thought were very level-headed folks, myself included, became bloodthirsty and angry. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I actually got to ride a plane a couple of times pre 9/11 for high school events and competitions for theater and shit. And one trip across country with my dad when I was 12. And I remember just walking onto the plane. Like, you walked through a metal detector and shit, and that was it. You know, there was no, like, pre-check and no, like, fucking pat down and no weird, you know what I mean? Like, I believe that there was one little, there might not have even been a medical, it might have been right at the gate, you know? Like, to get to the gate, you go through a metal detector real quick, and then you're in there. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even remember that. But I'd like to think that there was probably some baseline security. I just remember it was like a totally different experience going to the airport. And it wasn't because there were just less people there. It was, you know, the whole process was just kind of like more like getting on a train or getting on a bus, you know? It's like going to the bus station and getting on a bus. You go there, you sit, you get on your bus, you go where you're going, you get off your bus, you grab your bag, and you leave. I was only born in 96. Can I ask you what life was like before 9/11? And that's a really hard question to ask somebody to encapsulate for you. Um, you know, 9/11 was not to over dramatize it, but it was a really transformative event in American history. And I almost have a hard time remembering what day-to-day life was like prior to that day. Like, in terms of politically how things were different. Like, everything just changed. And there was a sense that it had changed, you know what I mean? That's really kind of the most memorable thing about that time. Is there was just this kind of, no matter where you stood on the political spectrum, whether you were just like a super fucking ANCAP, you know, or a hardcore fucking, you know, staunch Republican, a nationalist, an isolationist, you know, whatever the fuck you were, there seemed to be this kind of general consensus that everything was now different. Now, I'm not trying to say that, you know, somebody says life was peachy. I'm not trying to paint it like that. It was just different in some intangible way. And, you know, if you weren't of a certain age and had experienced enough of it to kind of wrap your mind around how the world worked before, it's a tough thing for a mind like mine to explain what was different. It was a total societal shift. In Ireland, we had a sense of social movement and actual movement with tons of endless money being churned out. And yeah, no, that was a lie, but it was a great attitude. Of course, we also had the IRA. Yeah. I mean, you know, and my perspective is very limited too. And I'm sure that, you know, the events of that day had a great impact on a lot of people all over the world. But you have to concede to me that there was something very uniquely American about that tragedy. And being here was a totally different thing. I mean, there's so many eerie stories that it's hard to even explain. I remember one day, in fact, it was the day of 9/11, and it was hours after the attacks had happened, and the sun had not yet quite gone down. And, you know, I was just, like everybody else, glued to my television set, and I needed a break. I had immersed myself in this craziness all day, and I was angry and just, to be honest with you, frightened more than anything. And it was a day that I was supposed to go to work, and my boss had called me and said that I was working at Starbucks at the time, and Starbucks closed all of its stores that day. And I was told not to come in for my shift, so I literally just sat there the whole day in front of the TV, and I needed a break. And I walked out in front of my little condo onto my lawn, and I lived in a busy neighborhood packed with families, with kids, you teenagers and cars with loud stereos, and right near a major thoroughfare, so you could always kind of hear the traffic of a major thoroughfare, and then right near a train track too. So there was, you know what I mean. And I live, near enough to an international airport that there was just always some kind of human noise outside. And I walked outside, and I shit you not, it was like the animals were inside watching TV. I didn't hear a bird. I didn't hear a bee. I didn't hear a mosquito. Not one giggle from some neighborhood kid. Not one booming stereo. Not the sound of one set of tires on the major thoroughfare I was near. Not the distant sound of an approaching train or the kind of like ever-present hum of air traffic above head. It was silent. Empty silent. And there were days like that, man. I'm telling you, like, you'd walk outside because they like, people don't remember this shit, but they grounded all air traffic in the United States for days after 9/11. And I would routinely walk outside to get a breath of fresh air, and just, it was never as bad as it was on that day. On the day that it happened was the only time it was ever that silent. But I'm telling you, it was a long time before it felt normal outside in terms of traffic, kids playing, airplanes flying overhead. It was all people talked about for weeks here and in the UK and Europe. It was the event of my life at that point. I was too young to remember the wall fall, and travel was just shite from then on. Yeah. Like I said, man, it's something that just the sheer impact of it, the shockwaves reached every country on the planet. Every country on the planet felt some kind of effect from those three planes, and the fourth that was shot down, or sorry, heroically sent into a tailspin. Thanks, Silver Flare. Thanks for the great questions, man, honestly. Good riffing material tonight. But I'm telling you, man, there's all kinds of little things like that. In the same vein of that kind of eerie silence, just going to public places that were normally bustling and busy. Even if they were busy, there was a quietness and a stillness about them that was like, it was like everybody was shopping at a grocery store that was also part of a queue to a funeral. It was just an odd time. It was a very odd time. Think about the extent to which technology has changed since then too. People weren't connected in this way before. Would be interesting how it could be covered nowadays. Oh man, yeah. Dude, if 9/11 or something equivalent happened today, it'd be even more insane, man. Because you're absolutely right, like when 9/11 happened, the cell phone, I mean, everybody had one, but it wasn't a data center yet, it wasn't as interconnected. There really was no social media to speak of. None of that stuff existed, so people were just kind of glued to their televisions, and if it happened now, you wouldn't be able to escape it. And it would be documented and puzzled over by so many different voices that you'd never be able to discern the truth. I mean, not that we were able to discern the truth any better back in the day, but I'm just saying the cackling cacophony of people waiting to line up to tell you what happened and why and how and what could have been done to prevent it and what it means going forward. I can't even imagine that today. You just have no hope. You have no hope of ever being able to discern what actually happened. You have no hope of ever coming to a consensus with the people around you. It's just an endless procession of opinion. How old was I when 9/11 happened? It was in 2001, so I would have been 21 years old. It was September, so I would have been 22 years old. I had a coworker that seriously thought 9/11 was for population control by the government. I mean, dude, you have no fucking idea the insane conspiracy theories that immediately start. Well, I'll tell you what immediately followed, and this was almost scarier than the conspiracy theories. What immediately followed was the most insane. I don't even know what to call it really. Warlust, I guess. Like I kind of touched on it earlier, but people that were peaceful, staunch liberals, pacifists, everybody wanted revenge. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, and I don't mean revenge like a stupid Hollywood movie about revenge. I mean actual blood. They wanted to see the citizenry of another country, whether they had anything to do with what happened to us or not. They wanted to see them scurrying and running away from burning buildings in their cities and sheltering themselves under fallen archways of what was left of their inner cities and cradling their dead children. We all wanted it. And I mean all of us, man. All of us. Revenge. It didn't last long, at least not with everybody. But there were a couple of days. You take into account some of the other stuff I've talked about, the weird silence outside. It was like living in the fucking Twilight Zone, man. American Muslims were treated as poorly as you can expect, and probably far more poorly. For every incident that was reported, and there were some pretty shitty incidents. I'm sad to report that I don't remember any specific ones, but there were a lot of really shitty incidents. Mosques defaced and burned, people beaten, accosted in public. Stories like that became so numerous that they just kind of became part of the background radiation of society for a few months, maybe even a year or more. And then you stopped hearing about them, but that didn't mean they stopped happening. That just means that the news media had moved on to other things. Like I said, for every one of those that we heard about, those of us that were really paying attention to the news, which was most people, there were probably, 2 or 3 dozen of them that went unreported and unremarked. The idea of the war lust, as you call it, is so fascinating to me. It's like a primitive call to war on a massive scale. It's like a holocaust of our hunter-gatherer, protect the tribe instinct. I don't know what it was, man. I can't really identify with the hunter-gatherer part of my body or brain anymore, but I'll tell you what, it was an angry time to be an American. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, too. People who weren't even Muslim, who stupid-ass, ill-informed Americans just assumed were Muslim, were attacked just for looking Muslim. Sikhs were actually pretty prominent in the area that I grew up. There was a Sikh enclave, and Sikhs were treated very poorly, derided as Muslims, just... Like I said, it was all part of that revenge. It wasn't even a how dare they attack the U.S. See, that would be an almost understandable thing, right? It's deeper than that. And having been there, it was like, how dare you attack me and my family? It was beyond that. It was beyond all the jingoistic ideas of pride and patriotism and nationalism that we think were behind all of that. It was personal, exactly. And it was taken that way by almost everybody that I knew. This wasn't, there, you spit on my flag, man. You spit on my flag. This was, you fucked with me. And you know what? I pay taxes that pay for bombs. And you want to fuck with me? Well, I'm going to fuck right back. I got the bigger dick, though. It wasn't us. You know, there's this kind of meme that gets passed around about unity. The only unity is everybody's kind of self-focused bloodlust. It was never about us, at least not for the first few days. It was about me. Was people realizing they weren't safe, yeah. Mom told me a plane hit a building in New York, and I literally pictured a Cessna. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what I thought it was at first, too. I remember my thinking, because there was, prior to 9/11, maybe a couple of years before, it might have even been less than that, there was a story like that. Some hobbyist pilot had been doing a flyover of New York City and was trying to get some vistas of the Twin Towers, lost control of his plane, and crashed his plane partially into one of the towers, if I'm not mistaken. And when I first saw it, and you know, honestly, at that time when I tuned in, people didn't know exactly what had happened yet, so there was still speculation that it could have been a smaller plane and that just a more direct impact or a more high velocity impact. I mean, nobody knew, and it was hard to tell, to get the scale of it, you know what I mean? Just looking at it, because those buildings are almost incomprehensibly huge for anybody that's never seen them. And even me, having laid eyes on them when I was 13 years old from the base and looked up them, it was still hard to tell from the news footage that we were being showed exactly how colossal that hole was. And I can only imagine how amplified that feeling was in New York City. I mean, shoo. As heavy as shit was on the West Coast, you know, almost as far from New York as you can get on, you know, mainland United States soil. As weird as my experience was, I can't even fucking imagine how much weirder it got the closer you got to the epicenter of the attacks. Imagine the pandemonium after the buildings collapsed. I mean, they didn't collapse at the same time either. Imagine the pandemonium of having one of those buildings collapse and then having all of your emergency services dealing with that horrible event while still seeing another building burning and rushing back in to try and save more people and having that building collapse on top of them. It was Indescribable watching that happen. Live. Indescribable. When it first started to come down, you know what I mean? I remember throwing my arms up in despair and just gawping at it. I remember my stepmother, who was over there at the time, just weeping in her chair. It was insane. It's like something out of a horrible movie, you know what I mean? But it was just dreamlike almost. I went to New York for the first time in 2004, and even still the Statue of Liberty was closed, as well as a few other buildings. I feel kind of privileged to have gotten to go to New York prior to all of this stuff and experience some of those things, because, yeah, a lot of that is different now. Everything changed, though. And really what it led to, what its legacy was, is an acceleration of a lot of the major problems we talk about today. It's not like they didn't exist before 2001. It's just that 2001 was used to justify an acceleration in stripping the citizenry of their voice and stripping the citizenry of the rights that protected them from the government. The real rights that protect them from the government, not their stupid right to go get a gun. Their right to speak and peaceably assemble, and their right to privacy, and their right against unreasonable search and seizure, all of that shit. It was used to establish a doctrine where a United States president could circumvent the Congress, the need for congressional approval for an act of war, based on the need for quote-unquote immediate defensive response. Everything changed. Those things were already happening in this country. Like I'm saying, it wasn't like a light switch went off. It was just like, anybody who's ever been on a roller coaster will understand what I'm talking about here. There's that kind of climb up to the top that, if you're like me, a person that's afraid of heights, even though I'm deathly afraid of heights, there's something serene about that, the clacking. And then there's that moment right before you go over the edge, or maybe just as you go over the edge, where you're kind of weightless. I feel like the whole country existed at that point for a couple of years. The amount of rights to privacy we gave up was incredible. They took advantage of the hysteria. The government and many people also made a mockery of anyone anti-war or crazy blood for oil. Yep. Oh, dude, being anti-war, I mean, I'm talking about it. Like, nowadays, it's, a lot of the staunch Republicans have come out against some of the 9/11 era Bush doctrine wars. But during that time, dude, you towed the line or you got shouted down. No fucking joke, man. It was just like, nope, they bombed us. I mean, that was really the level of understanding most Americans had of the conflict. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. Not even close to the biggest disaster that's happened in my lifetime in terms of life and property and, just sheer damage done. But certainly the most psychologically affecting one. My mom used to work in the World Trade Center in the 90s. She said it had a nice restaurant at the top. Yeah, I think it's called Windows on the World. I never got to go up in the buildings. I got to see them from ground level, but I have heard that the view, specifically from the top, was just kind of a breathtaking thing. Do you think the fourth plane was shot down? I do. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. I can't prove it, but the official story seems like dog shit to me, and it seems like something that the United States government would definitely have an impetus to lie about. Blowing up a plane filled with American citizens in order to prevent more damage is not exactly an easy decision to make. I actually don't think it was the wrong decision. And I don't really fault the government for doing it, but I think that they're lying about it. Yeah, I lived through Columbine as well. I was about 19 when Columbine happened. I had sisters who were in school. And, maybe you were a parent during that time. I think it was probably very, very much more of a memorable event for parents. It was scary. I remember being scared as a kid. And I remember kind of the hysteria that surrounded it. But it doesn't really approach 9/11 in my memory. In what ways, if any, did 9/11 affect your worldview? I was 22 and very much a kid who was trying to rebel against his very conservative father by exploring the more liberal side of things, the more peaceful side of things when it came to political ideology. And it taught me that no one is above being manipulated into advocating things that are totally contrary to their political ideals, no matter how staunchly they hold them. I mean, that's the real lesson that I took away from 9/11 about myself, is that as grounded as I feel in my political beliefs and the process by which I kind of refine those and change them over time, I can be turned into a bloodthirsty, warmongering idiot given the right amount of pressure and fright. Eric Harris wrote in his diary in '98 that he fantasized about hijacking a plane and crashing it into New York City. Spooky stuff, yeah. Pretty spooky stuff. Dude, what is this? I feel like we're watching a slow-mo, like, I don't know, a city burning and a woman crying over the body of her dead child or something, you know what I mean? I don't know. I was younger during the Oklahoma City bombing, so I had kind of less of a grasp on the implications of it, I think. But I imagine that things were kind of similar. I remember being spooked by just the sheer magnitude of that attack, and the pictures were unreal. That city is always burning, and a mother is always crying. Oh, shit, dude. You're making it hard to fap. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. AI will take over and everything will be fine. Okay. I love this kind of music, man. This is exactly the kind of background music that I find to be really I mean, I could do without the vocals, but I love this kind of ambient soundscape stuff. Yeah, I mean, it was a terrorist attack from within. There wasn't that immediate feel of being assaulted by some kind of foreign power who didn't understand our way of life and didn't value it, and in fact, hated our freedom, quote unquote. It was, you know, once again, I'm kind of speculating here because, like I said, I was a little younger for Oklahoma City. Wasn't quite as politically aware, and it's, you know, a number of years farther in the past for me, and as you get old, things get hazy, but I don't remember it being anywhere near as an affecting event as 9/11 was. The Disneyverse will save us all. It really dawned on me recently that they own everything. I told you, man. We had that whole talk a few months ago about the Disneyverse, and it's true. You know, and maybe it's time for some of us to start talking about getting on board with some of this totalitarian, you know, 1984 police state type of things, you know, and maybe we start advocating for the better ones. You know, if we're going to just be on a bullet train racing inexorably towards that anyway, maybe some of us should just kind of go, all right, well, that's going to happen. Here's the best way for that to play out. Because, yeah, man. Consolidation. You know, we've gone through this before with the robber barons. And back then, we deemed it necessary to break up those monopolies, create antitrust laws, but those days are over, man. Those laws have been turned into Swiss cheese and loopholed to the point of non-existence, and slowly but surely all that influence is consolidating in the hands of fewer and fewer and fewer people. I mean, you know, you follow that line and it just ends with everything being owned by one company, which is the dream. The ultimate ability to capitalistically exploit the populace of the world. A consolidated company that's business interests cover everything. It has its finger in every economic pie. Yeah, buddy. Learn Chinese? Yeah, no shit. I mean, I know that's kind of a, you know, a cheap-ass fucking aphorism nowadays, but learn Chinese indeed. You want to know what the sad thing is? Is that a lot of us will celebrate that shit happening. I'll be one of them. When Disney finally, you know, if it happens in my lifetime, which it very well might, when Disney finally purchases the entire entertainment industry, and we're talking all music, all movies, then we'll get what we were talking about that day. The Disno Channel. Every human artistic endeavor under one umbrella on the Disno Channel. And I'll like it. Jack the Ripper did 9/11. I just feel it. Oh my God, sir. I farted in my diaper and some poop came out. I farted in my diaper and some poop came out. I stood up out of my chair and I shout, hey, I farted in my diaper and some poop came out. I'm gonna need some powder on my butt cheeks now. I'm gonna need some powder on my butt cheeks now, 'cause I farted in my diaper and some poop came out, and the diaper rash can be quite bad. I farted in my diaper and some poop came out. I stood up out of my chair and shout, I'm gonna need some powder on my butt cheeks now, because I farted in my diaper and some poop came out. Yeah. All right, back to 9/11. Oh my God, I can't tell you what a harrowing day it was. You prefer Mardi Gras over Disney World? Well, Galen, I've got great news for you. Mardi Gras is now Disno-Gras. That's right, we've taken everything that's cool about Mardi Gras. Boobies, beads, floats, camaraderie, local pride and tradition, and brought it under the umbrella of the Disnoverse. Will you be able to catch a handful of beads from Pluto the dog and Minnie Mouse as they trot along besides the Disnoverse float? Ho-ho! It's Disno-Gras! You know what, Galen? I'd like to invite you to be the chairman of the first annual Disno-Gras. You'll get to ride at the head of the float and carry the scepter of Mickey's head, bestowing the wisdom of the big round ears upon everybody who's there, distributing handfuls of plastic beads. Well, I'm done with Disney. I learned my fucking lesson, dude. Yeah, Disney's over for me. Yeah, I've seen enough. I've been down that road enough. Okay, I might go to Disneyland again, but Disney World is hell on earth. I mean, whatever. I don't mean to be fucking... I know there's people that would fucking give their left nut to go to Disney World or whatever, so I don't mean to seem totally ungrateful, but goddamn. Me and the pace of that place and the pace of Paul's ego do not match. Let's just put it that way, all right? Let's just put it that way. Hey, Paul, do you think jealousy has a value in driving humans to improve themselves, or is it a genuinely, purely negative emotion? Thank you, Goatfish, the Goatfish. Goat versus Fish, the Goatfish. For the 272, my friend. I appreciate it. Jealousy. I mean, I don't know. I don't really experience a whole ton of jealousy. I mean, I'm not totally free from it, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you. It's not a human emotion that I've spent a whole lot of time examining. I couldn't tell you. I guess my initial feeling on it is that it's a negative human emotion that probably serves no benefit, but I could be wrong about that. You've seen American Psycho? Yes, I've seen American Psycho a bunch of times. My favorite scene in American Psycho is one of the most understated scenes. I love the scene where Patrick Bateman and all of his douchey friends are sitting around a table at break, in the break room at work, and they all kind of compare their business cards. I really, really love that scene. It's just like dripping with tension, and there's really no reason for it to be. It's just beautifully presented. Paul, is everything we do on YouTube just farting in the wind and hoping that someone will be downwind enough to notice? I mean, pretty much. That's pretty much all anybody's doing on a long enough time scale. You're lucky if you even get to fart into the wind to the point where somebody could smell it on a long enough time scale, you know what I mean? Whatever. What can we do but what comes naturally to us? You know? Some of us are doers. Some of us are dreamers. Some of us are talkers. I just started in my gold darn britches. I think I might have to go down and get some stitches, 'cause I ripped my asshole with that mighty shart. Hey, I just sharted in my gold darn britches. I think it might be a bunch of snitches told on me down there at the Walmart. Hey, listen to the story I'm about to tell about a shitty stained britches and a badass smell. I was in the Walmart to get in the shop when all of a sudden some shit did plop out of my asshole into my pants. I did the little oh no I just shit dance. Went to the bathroom, sat my butt down, spread my butt cheeks and gave a frown. I pooped and pooped, I thought it'd never stop. It kept on squirting and it went plop plop. And then I thought, what am I gonna do? I got shitty ass drawers and I'm stuck in the loo. I just sharted in my gold darn britches and I think I'm gonna need about 16 stitches in my butt crack because it ripped me wide. Hey, I just sharted in my gold darn britches. Don't you all be a bunch of snitches. Just, oh, I'm tired of this shit. Fuck this. I need some banjo, yeah. Somebody do a fucking harmonica solo already. I don't know, dude. How do I feel about Deliverance? It's a movie that I've watched once, maybe twice, and I don't think I ever want to do it again. Not that it's a bad movie, it's just, you know, it's kind of a downer. Tell us a story about the time you did cocaine with a gator again. Now get out of here, Brianna. That was a one-time thing, dude. A one-time thing, dude. I can ask Assad. All right. Can I yodel? Yodelee, 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 yodelee. It appears I've defecated in my corduroys. I'm just a lonely, empty sort of boy. I sit here in my chair and I watch the world go by, and the runny shit just dribbles down my thigh. It appears that I've defecated in my corduroys. I don't need any of my stupid, silly toys. All I need is a shower and a big black bag for trash. And pull this wet pair of underwear out of the crack of my fucking ass. Hard time talking to you on chat. Netflix or Netflix X Disney collab is a sweet deal. Jealousy can inspire change / innovation in the right person. All right, Toki Monster. Cares director. Shut the fuck up. Not you. The director. I'm talking to director. Shut the fuck up, director. Quit being such a fucking. Like, you haven't contributed a goddamn thing to this chat tonight. Like, we've had a pretty lively chat. We've moved from subject to subject. You know how many things I've pulled from director? 0. Like, quit acting like you deserve to be noticed, bitch. Why don't you go ahead and, like, contribute something? And then possibly I'll notice what you're fucking talking about. But just whining like a beta bitch in my fucking chat, hoping that I'll fucking say your name is, like, gotta be one of the saddest, lowest fucking things I've ever seen somebody do on the internet. Just go fuck yourself, dude. Come up with something interesting for me to talk about. Say something fucking insightful in the chat. Like, TJ managed to get me to sing a song that was pretty funny by talking about different ways to shit my pants. And that has fucking elevated him like 10 steps above you, who have contributed nothing but this salty outburst that you should be ashamed to be on the receiving end of. I'm sorry, director. Yeah. It's fine, director. You just gotta... Look, dude, everybody gets hit with some shrapnel now and again, alright? And your fucking bitch ass is deserving of shrapnel more than most people in this fucking chat, alright? You know what you do. You know you're a troll, you piece of shit. Roast me like you roasted Kawaii Cost, you bitch. Creamage, you ain't earned a roasting by my hand. You ain't earned a roasting by my hand. You have no heart, boy. Paul seems bored. I'm actually having a pretty good time. Galen has a very imprecise measure of how I'm feeling and what I'm up to most of the times, I've noticed. Usually when Galen says Paul seems X, I'm usually feeling about 180 degrees from that. I don't know what it is. Galen misinterprets my wavelength a whole fucking lot. Oh, TJ, Paul said, well, yeah. TJ's right. Paul, I am tired of your foolish games, and I wonder who will save your soul. You quoting Jewel? Oh, you Jewel fool. Got it. Got it, dude. Why is TJ in the chat? Because he doesn't want to go heads up, dude. I saw what happened last time. I turned him into a mockery. A motley fool. With a jingling cap of bells. I watched one of your earliest videos on objective morality. Do you still hold that perspective, and would you be willing to discuss it with TJ? I'd have to go back and look at the video, honestly. I cannot remember if I have fundamentally changed my perspective on that. So I'll go back and watch. But yeah, if I'm still sitting there, I'd discuss it with TJ. I want to see Paul argue with old Paul. Why? Old Paul's dead. New Paul is here. Every day is new Paul, and old Paul dies. What do you miss from the blog TV / Stickem days? Stickem was kind of fun due to just kind of the random pop in, pop out nature of, you know, voice chat. I mean, you can imagine the trolling was pretty fucking ridiculous. But you'd get some crazy perspective and some interesting trolls that would drive the narrative, and some really antagonistic detractors, and it was like very slightly controlled chaos. I liked that about at least Stickham. Blog TV I wasn't as into as other people were. I used to like watching TJ and Fake Sagan and Cody Weber and stuff do their blog TV shows. They were really kind of reminiscent of what I'm doing now, you know, in terms of just being kind of chat driven. So Paul, earlier you called me sir. You assumed my fapping gender. Also the hard... What? Get out of here. I don't want to talk about fapping. Paul, important question. How's bubble theory coming along? Pretty good. Research continues. Paul, important question. You just... Oh, okay. All right. Fine. Fine, Ian. Are you still Paul's ego, or are you just Paul now? I'm whatever you want to call me, dude. I'm Pennywise the Dancing Clown, if you prefer. Paul, what's it like to be a moderate internet celebrity? I couldn't answer that because I don't consider myself that. Like, I don't know. You'll have to ask somebody else that question. Hey, Paul, how would humanity change if all humans' life expectancy was significantly increased? I mean, I think eventually we would have to confront the overbreeding, problem, overpopulating the earth. I think that a lot of people would call it a dystopian part of my worldview, but licensing for parenting and all of that sort of stuff, I think you'd see that happen. Resources, become a big part of competition, even more so than they are now, the longer we live. Need a lot of diapers to cover your ass if you're going to live to 200 years old, Those diapers got to come out of somebody else's pocket. That's the way it works. What does director look like in my mind? Kind of like me, but with a way sparser beard. I see director as a great big fat dude. Like, maybe even way fatter than me. Just kind of lounging in his chair. Kind of like that dude that was playing World of Warcraft in fucking that South Park episode, It's kind of almost catatonic, slack-jawed, wearing a disgusting stained shirt that he's had on for 2 weeks. Living in his own filth, pretending to be a fucking teacher, dude. You were in the army? Well, they asked me how I saw you, not what you actually look like, dipshit. Nobody cared enough to ask what you actually look like. Somebody cared enough to ask what I thought you looked like. So if you'll please fucking shut your mouth and let me continue. Anyway, one of those people that you look at him and you can just tell he stinks. And not even just in a normal, like, oh, I got a little hint of BO there, but just in a, like, man, there's probably just, like, weak old shit packed in his ass crack kind of stink, dude. Putrid breath. Just like that weird white accumulation of spit in the corners of his mouth. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm making fun of your powers of divination. Let me tell you, was it hard to type that sentence with your big, giant, greasy, fucking Cheeto dust-covered sausage fingers, or have you gotten really good at it? Or do you have one of those special keyboards that have, like, bigger keys so that your one single index finger that is the width of a normal person's thumb, if it were tied to their other thumb, you know what I mean? You have, like, an extra big keyboard? I'm just wondering, director. I'm sorry, go ahead. You were saying about yourself, about how fit and wonderful you are and how intelligent you are and how respected you are amongst your teaching community and how learned you are and how many fucking schools you've been to. I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, like I said, Toki Monster, I'd have to go take a look at the video and tell you how, if at all, my views have changed. And I can tell you that I haven't always been, well, I don't even really consider myself a nihilist now. I think pessimism falls way closer to my my worldview than nihilism. Paul, what would your smell be like if you narrowly escaped a rural jungle in South America after being lost for 2 weeks? What would my smell be like? It would be the smell of a rotting corpse, because I never would have escaped the jungle. I would have made it about 10 feet, gotten winded, paused for breath, and whatever was chasing me would have killed me. And then probably taken one bite of me and decided I wasn't fit for consumption and left me to rot out there in the sun. Nihilism is just pessimism with personal responsibility removed. That's a Paul Zigo quote. Go ahead and fucking write it down. Nihilism is just the position that people take when they're smart enough to see that nothing means anything, but not engaged enough to look at their own personal contribution to the ongoing meat grinder suffering that typifies existence and just go, well, it doesn't matter. Get out of here, TJ. Paul, when was the first time you felt like you were being mentally manipulated? Oh, dude, I knew about, like, mind games from a very early age. You know, I grew up around a lot of drunk human beings, and they do a lot of manipulating of one another. So I saw the little social games people play with themselves from a very young age, and learned to play my own versions of them where I had to. Tried to take notes every time a new one got me, but if you really know how to look, manipulation is present in pretty much every conversation, every exchange you have with another person is a kind of objective-based exchange. Each person involved in the exchange has a need that they want met and are strategizing ways to find that need met. Oh shit, Brianna says, Galen, you overestimate your intelligence. Oh shit. Galen getting called on the plate. It's going down. It's going down. Not true of optimistic nihilism, where nothing mattering opens you up to autonomy to create and change without the worry of purpose. I mean, I'm fine with not being overburdened by the worry of purpose, but not feeling like being a part of existence, looking around, taking stock of your life, and not feeling like that you and everybody else is part of a fucking raw deal. I just can't buy into that, man. I don't like this optimistic nihilism shit. Like, that seems like a philosophy for really fat, really comfortable, really happy people. You know what I mean? Tell that optimistic nihilist philosophy to some fucking asshole in the Congo, so skinny that his lips have receded from his gums and teeth and shit, and he just walks around with flies buzzing around him all day. Talk to him about how nothing means anything, so you can create anything you want with your optimistic nihilist philosophy. It frees you from the worries and cares of having a purpose. Yeah, tell him about optimistic nihilism. No, pessimism covers him pretty well, though. Holy shit. This planet is a fucking meat grinder that any sane person would opt out of if they knew the length and breadth of scope of all of the pain and misery and agony and anguish that they would discover in their lives. Nobody would press that button and go, yep, let me be shit out into the fucking world. You know what I mean? That covers that guy pretty good. Do I think optimistic nihilism is pretentious? No, but I think it's, just another in a long litany of like little lies that we tell ourselves to spruce up existence. Like, it's fine, you know what I mean? If that's how you get through your day, to be like, nothing matters, so tweedly-dee, tweedly-dum. The world is my playground, even though, there's a lot more rules and boring bullshit and that there usually isn't a playground, but whatever. I'm an optimistic nihilist. I mean, if that's how you get through fucking life, have at it. But don't expect me to look at it as anything else other than just another dumb little lie that we tell ourselves to try and fucking make ourselves feel okay about the giant misery meat grinder that we've all been forced into. Hey, Paul, DFF is great. Inside every cynical person, there's a disappointed idealist. Inside every fucking pseudo-intellectual, there's an easily found fucking stupid little anecdote. Paul's ego. 2018. Hey, Paul, DFF is great. Oh, I already read that, but I want to read it again. Hey, Paul, DFF is great. Oh, thanks, cynical bastard. Hey, Paul, DFF is great. Oh, thanks, cynical bastard, for the $5. Hey, Paul, DFF is great. Oh, thanks, Sempital Bassard, for the $5, man. That's really cool. I appreciate that. That was a George Carlin quote. Yeah, I find myself not agreeing with George on a lot of things. I mean, George was probably the first poster boy for optimistic nihilism, so the critiques that I was just giving, as tongue-in-cheek as they were, I have a little bit more respect for optimistic nihilism than I was letting on in that little angry rant. But yeah, those critiques apply to George Carlin too. Ticket to the Freak Show. No. You don't get to look at life as a ticket to the freak show when some people don't get the ticket because they're forced to be part of it. You know what I mean? That was always just a disconnected way of thinking in my mind. George Carlin was the first one to introduce me to that kind of thinking. I even talk about it in a video quite some time ago about really agreeing with George Carlin and then hearing that life's just you get a admit one ticket to the freak show. And I remember listening to that bit and thinking, man, this is the first time I don't feel right about something that George Carlin has said. I don't find myself going, yep, you know what, he's right about that. It's stuck in my craw. It's like, what about the people that are part of the fucking freak show? What about the people born with fucking harlequin ichthyosis and shit? What about those little freaks? Does their suffering and abject torture of their existence not matter? Are they not considered just because they're in a position where, you know, their physical pain or their horrible circumstances preclude them from going, well, nothing means anything but tra-la-la-la-la anyway. He meant that we're all the freak show? Right, yeah, I understand that, but he always talked about it as himself just being like, I'm in it for the ride. I'm along for the fucking freak show. You know, it ain't my job to change none of this. It ain't my job to figure out the meaning of none of this. I'm just here to gawk. And it's like, well, that's a nice position to be in, but some people don't get to be in that position. Some people are the exhibits being gawped at. You know, the bottom of that hierarchy are people that don't get to gawp at anything. They're gawping at a fucking drop of water, you know, as it trickles down the face of one of their fucking village mates who's dying of starvation and thinking, if I lick that tear, will it sustain me? You know, that's the kind of fucking consideration they get to have for their philosophical viewpoint, optimistic nihilists. I'm just saying, like, you gotta take the entire human experience into, you know, at least in my opinion. If you're gonna talk about a life philosophy, if you're gonna throw your chips behind a life philosophy, you got to be able to apply that to people. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem. I agree with Carlin. It's a big fucking freak show. It's insane. But a freak show doesn't exist without exhibits and people looking at them. And pretty much, you know, everybody that you know probably gets to be the exhibit a lot of the times and gets to be the gawker. But there are people at the bottom of that hierarchy that don't get to be either. Their suffering goes unnoticed by the freak show. I don't know, man. You got to take suffering into account. Suffering matters. You listen to a guy like Gary and Mendham, suffering's the only thing that matters to him. Now, I don't know if I'll go that far. I've been won that far over to the camp of Ethylism or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I can certainly see the sentiment. Certainly closer to home to me than optimistic nihilism, as it's presented by Kurt Zocht on YouTube. A lot of us have figured out that nothing really means anything anyway, but that doesn't mean you have to be filled with dread and despair. It just means that life is an infinite toy box, and that your life is like a painting that you get to decide on how it looks every day. It's like, fuck you. You look at this fucking meat grinder of a planet, you think it's like a painting? You know what's like a painting? A painting. You know what's like life? Suffering, misery, tragedy, defeat, debauch, despair. And see, and that's the anchor that a person like me and people that think like me, or people that are in my realm of philosophical thinking, us lonely fucking maligned pessimists. Jeez, Paul, you're so negative, as if that dismisses the truth of anything that I said. Shouldn't you be negative when shit is negative? I love talking about my philosophical standpoint. It's part of how I've arrived where I'm at. But man, that's got to be the worst one for me personally, is, oh man, dude, look how negative he is. As if it's my job to make you feel good about life. That's your job. That's why you're an optimistic nihilist. That's why you've got to go fiddle-dee-dee, nothing matters, wee-dee-dee-dee-dee, but I'm going to make a painting with my life, tra-la-la. That's your job. You want to fill your fucking head with, like, candies and daisies and lollipops about the universe and stuff, then fucking have at it, bro. You're asking me how I feel about things, though. I ain't gonna candy coat it for you. Existence, by and large, sucks. Paul's an optimist. He thinks suffering matters. It doesn't. That's easy to say. That's an easy statement to make, dude, from the unassailable pinnacle of optimistic nihilism. Suffering, just... Paul likes to say that things like fucking horrible, tragic pain matter, but they don't. Tra-la-la, back to my painting. It's like, all right. I think the only thing that makes us conscious beings is that suffering matters to us. It's because most people can't handle the reality of this world, so they lie to themselves, and I'm fine with that, but just don't harsh my mellow, you know what I mean? Don't jump down my throat for being a negative bastard because I don't like to engage in that self-stroking nonsense. I agree with you, dude. On a cosmic scale, suffering doesn't matter. But from the perspective of a conscious being who has to endure an entire life on this planet, from the perspective of all beings of various levels of consciousness that have to endure the same, what else matters? You don't think suffering matters? Get injured to the point where you're fucking in nothing but agonizing pain all day, and your life consists of just every waking moment being an agonizing, fucking unstoppable nightmare. And tell me suffering doesn't matter. Just go, oh man, none of this fucking matters, bro. I can barely fucking move. Oh god, nothing matters, bro. Optimistic. Oh, yeah, dude, nothing matters. My pessimistic philosophy is rooted in empathy, which is a natural human cognitive function that I can't switch off. I suffer quite a bit from, you know, aches and pains and psychological ailments, but I know that my suffering is minuscule in comparison to the people at the bottom of that social pyramid that we were talking about earlier. The amount of abject misery and suffering on this planet is incalculable. And I don't put a party dress on that and try and make a painting out of it. I'm sorry. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. Once again, that's a fun thing to consider while you're, you know, staring at the last handful of grain that your village has. You know what I mean? And the ever-growing pile of fucking decaying bodies on the outskirts of town of people who've just dropped dead from famine. You know what I mean? Like, you have to consider those people. You have to consider that aspect of fucking existence. And if your philosophy ignores that in favor of some la-di-freaking-da, make me feel better about being thrust into this fucking existence without ever having asked for it, then you're just being disingenuous. You're being just as disingenuous as a person that's like, well, Jesus gonna take away all my pain and suffering. You're just being like, well, yeah, I got pain and suffering, but none of that matters. None of that matters because life is a painting. Life's a sandbox. It's an American privilege to have that worldview. Not just American, but it certainly is a worldview that some people would never even consider. The strong suffer right along with the weak, dude. That's a silly fucking thing to say. See, this is Director C. You want to know why I don't come to you very often? Because I read stupid ass fucking comments like that. The weak and the strong suffer in tandem. Nobody's the weak. Like, you think the weak are the only people taking the fucking boot? Everybody here. I don't care how alpha you are, dude. I don't care how much you thump your fucking chest, dude. You're not exempt. You're on the same mud ball. You're locked in the same fucking prison I am. Pessimism is stupid for the same reason optimism is stupid. Oh, shit, man. We got somebody with splinters in his taint. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Ewan Bounds, the fence rider. In this little conversation we're having about the efficacy of two different worldviews, Ewan Bounds will be playing the dude that's scooting along the fence going, I think you're both fucking dumb, honestly. I think it's a little bit of both. Little 50, little 50. Say, que sera, man. Mas o menos. Who gives a fuck, man? All right. Well, thanks for your fucking nonsensical, stupid perspective that added nothing to what we're talking about here tonight. Am I a suicidalist? That's not even a word. You just invented that word. You're feeding into a false dichotomy, so... Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a very narrow subject here. We're not talking about everybody's worldview. We're talking about two different worldviews and how they interrelate and how I see the other and how people that are adherents of the other see mine. That's what we're talking about here. You don't have an opinion on that, or you're somewhere in the middle of that, that's fine, but you probably got nothing to add to this fucking conversation. Nature is suffering. Nature is competition. Through strength, you mitigate your suffering. Director, you just typed 3 sentences that mean absolutely nothing. You fed me a big stack of platitudes that don't address a single thing I've talked about here tonight. Your comment's not even pithy, dude. You're a total piece of fucking shit. It's the last time I'm reading one of yours. You're not going to add anything. See, this type of conversation isn't really depressing to me. You know what I mean? It's depressing to other people. And people certainly speak out about that. They don't like it when I do these types of streams when the conversation takes these kind of turns. But I feel it's really important for me to have these kind of conversations. You know, a lot of people think they're way more reflective of whatever my personal mood is at that time. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. This is one of those times when it really isn't. I'm not feeling particularly depressed or anxious or negative. I'm just being honest. Excuse me. Good conversation. I think so too. I like it. It's challenging conversation. You know? And it's actually therapeutic to me to work through some of this stuff. You know, there is a lot of emotion wrapped up in anybody's philosophical worldview. I don't care how cold and detached and logical you think you are. If you don't think that there's a whole lot of fallible human emotion wrapped up in your philosophical worldview, then you're just lying to yourself. Yeah, I mean, TJ, if you wanna have this conversation on the show, I can come down there and you can fire up a TJ Does live stream and we can discuss these things further or change the subject if you want. I'm down to stream for a little longer tonight if you're in the mood. I don't really have a reply to state agreement or disagreement. I'm just observing. I'd really like to hear what you have to say about it, Galen. I know that's opening up a bag of worms sometimes. But sometimes it's hard to gauge, you know, where you stand on these kind of issues. You're a fastidious observer, which I don't blame you for. Being a motor mouth has its downsides. Just because you're so off the... Oh, never mind, that's director. I said I was not going to read you anymore. Keep typing, and I'm just going to fucking kick you out of here. You've been warned, dipshit. I'm just hoping for more spontaneous outbursts of fine country songs. Yes, yes. Paul, master of tism and ideas. Well, whatever. I'll take it. Come on, TJ. Come on, TJ. What do you say? To roll up a legal tobacco cigarette. Enjoy your high chair, Paul. My high chair? Cool. Where's it at? When do I get it? What do you say to what? I said if you would like, we can I can come downstairs and we can move this over to a TJ Does live stream. You know what I mean? And like I said, make us up a nice tobacco cigarette. We can sit around together like a couple of fucking neckbeards. See how badly we can depress people. Yeah, dude. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and end this stream now. For those of you that are interested, perhaps one of my mods, if one of them is around tonight, would be kind enough to link TJ's TJ Does Life channel if you're interested in seeing the conversation continue over there. Then, go ahead and head over there. Yep, TJ Does Life. You search that on YouTube. If there's nobody here to put up a link, which is rare, but I guess possible, then just search TJ Does Life over on YouTube. You'll find it. We'll be live over there pretty soon for more rambling, incoherent, crazy nonsense. I'll catch you guys over there, and until next time, peace-ity, 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 peace.
What it do, what it do, what it do, what it do.